In a dimly lit room, the clock struck midnight as Detective Jones stared at the evidence board with an overwhelming amount of frustration etched on her face. Detective Jones had just started her shift and was alerted that something urgent needed to be looked into sooner than later. Upon conducting some investigative work, she was able to write down a list of what occurred the night before her shift and what was brought to her attention upon entering the office. For some reason, Detective Jones had a feeling that today would be one of those days where she would have a whirlwind of detective work to dive into and help to solve. This particular case of the missing artifact had her baffled. Not only was this a treasured artifact that belonged to the city, but it was well known and popular amongst tourists to the area. It was the precious sapphire serpent, stolen from the city's downtown museum, that seemed to have vanished without a trace. Her thoughts were interrupted by a rhythmic knock on the door. It was the night janitor, old Mr. Jackson. "Detective, I think I might have seen something odd last night," as he stammered nervously. Detective Jones became intrigued. Mr. Jackson described a shadowy figure, dressed in a long black trench coat, slipping into the museum late at night, just before the theft was discovered. He couldn't make out the details of the person's face, but he did catch a glimpse of an interesting tattoo on the person's hand, a serpent coiled around a sapphire. Racing against time, Detective Jones reviewed the museum's security footage. There it was, a brief but crucial moment showing the thief's hand. As she enlarged the image, the tattoo became clearer. With a mix of excitement and urgency, Detective Jones cross-referenced the tattoo with the city's most known criminals. The tattoo led her to an underground art collector, Jorge de la Vega, whose obsession with rare artifacts was an open secret. Confronting de la Vega, Detective Jones found herself in an intense standoff. Just as the situation escalated, her partner burst in and apprehended de la Vega's accomplice, who had the same serpent tattoo on his hand. As the handcuffs were placed on the criminals, Detective Jones couldn't help but smile at the power of a single clue. The stolen sapphire serpent was recovered, and the mystery was finally unraveled. It was all due to the mark that tied the thieves to their crime. The clock struck midnight once more, but this time, Detective Jones had solved the greatest mystery that had eluded her. As she traveled home on the dark road ahead while listening to her favorite tunes, she couldn't help but to think that today was a great day of solving a mystery that had the whole town perplexed.